In October 2006, Joe Biden, then Senator for Delaware, gave a stirring statement. The Democrats' support for Israel comes from our gut, moves through our heart and ends up in our head. It's almost genetic. Biden's VP pick Kamala Harris has made similarly strong statements in support of the Jewish state. But the question that remains on many of our minds is what a Biden-Harris administration would really mean for Israel. Trump's presidency oversaw many broadly positive moves for the Middle East. From the summer of 2020 onwards, the US incubated a slew of normalization deals between Israel and its Muslim neighbours, a situation that was unthinkable just months ago. This progress bypassed the mantra of many previous US administrations, that the route to peace between Israel and the Arab world was dependent on further compromise with Palestinian leaders. The administration also moved the US Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, a plan that many US presidents had previously promised on but never delivered. Cut funding to the UN's controversial Organisation for Palestinian Refugees, adjusted America's long-held view that Israeli settlements in the West Bank are inconsistent with international law, and finally recognised Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. But why does the American approach to Israel matter at all? The US-Israel relationship is paramount to Israel's safety and security. Each year, Israel receives billions in loan guarantees and foreign aid from the US, mostly in the form of military assistance. But what's in it for the US? The reality is, US-Israel aid is a logical extension of America's post-war power projection. The US role in the Middle East is, not as many would caricature it, the project of a nefarious Jewish lobby against American interests. Safeguarding the only Western-style democracy in the region is of no small interest to the US if it intends to maintain its influence in a volatile but strategically important stretch of land, where America and Israel's enemies also vie for influence. Biden and the Democratic Party traditionally share this vision, but the party and America itself are changing. Even under Obama, a president so often hailed for his moderation, things were tricky. In the final days of his administration, Obama chose to side with China, Russia, Cuba and Venezuela to name a few, by refusing to veto a UN Security Council resolution that, among other offences, designated all Israeli settlements, including ancient Jewish holy sites in Jerusalem, as illegal. Grassroots Democrat support for Israel is also slipping. In a 2018 Pew Institute poll showed that 79% of Republicans claim to sympathise more with Israel than the Palestinians, compared with just 27% of Democrats. This shift in attitudes is even more marked among younger generations. Many are particularly taken by a group of young minority Congress representatives that includes Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib, all of whom have displayed negative views toward Israel and sympathies with the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement. In February 2019, Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar even tweeted that congressional support for Israel is all about the Benjamin's baby, a slang term for $100 bills, and a straightforward accusation that American lawmakers who support the Jewish state are simply being bought off. And Biden himself has not always delivered on his heartwarming rhetoric when it comes to Israeli relations. Yet, there remain reasons both for scepticism and hope for Israelis and Zionists worldwide on the eve of his presidency. Kamala Harris, who has routinely been ranked as one of the most liberal senators, has already confirmed that, despite protests from radical sections of the party, a Biden administration will not impose any conditions on US aid to Israel. Moreover, Biden will surely be preoccupied with domestic recovery from the COVID-19 crisis, and any foreign policy moves will most likely focus on countering China and Russia. While Biden's national security pick Antony Blinken and Secretary of State nominee Jake Sullivan have a history of hawkishness in Iraq and Libya, it is unlikely that Israeli-Palestinian peace, or conflict for that matter, will take up much of their energy anytime soon. But when it comes to Biden's approach to Iran, Israel may have much to be concerned about. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a theocratic police state whose rhetoric is no less hate-filled on the international stage than it is towards its own citizens. It is the biggest threat to Israeli security. State parades regularly chant death to America, and the regime never made a secret of its violent anti-Semitism, referring to Israel as a cancer in need of removal and actively promoting Holocaust denial. US-Iran tensions have been high since Trump spearheaded the US withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 and subsequently reimposed heavy financial sanctions. Although Biden has claimed to an unshakable commitment to preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, he has vowed to rejoin the controversial deal. The deal allows Iran to delay inspections of its nuclear facilities for 24 days, pick its own inspectors, and keep 97% of its enriched uranium. The deal signees are even obliged to officially accept the, quote, peaceful intentions of Iran's nuclear program, despite the fact that its decades of cover-ups and anti-Israel aggression say otherwise. The deal's windfall of sanctions freed up tens of billions of dollars that permitted Iran to increase its military budget by 145% during President Rouhani's first term, allowing it to continue its many destabilizing activities in the region, including its financial backing of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Assad regime in Syria, all of which pose a direct threat to all adjacent populations, including the world's only Jewish state. When it comes to personal dynamics, it's no secret that the current Israeli Prime Minister and Trump have shared a rather cosy relationship. Yet, as Netanyahu faces another re-election campaign, not to mention ongoing corruption charges, it is possible that Biden finds himself dealing with a Prime Minister more to his liking. Although we do not have access to a crystal ball, the evidence suggests that Biden's approach to the Middle East and Israel will attempt at a return to the status quo, and the effort to once again schmooze with the likes of Iran and the Palestinian Authority in an attempt at peace. But more than likely, Biden's attention will be mostly focused elsewhere.